Hey, everybody. Hope and pray that you're doing well. Today, as we come to our word from the Word, and today that word is calm. Calm. There's always been these here recently in the past few years. It's this slogan of just stay calm or remain calm, and then it'll just remain calm and play golf, or remain calm and trust Jesus. So today, even as we talk about having that calmness, if you're reading along, and I pray that you are, Matthew 17, and I had a hard time picking and choosing which portion I was going to look at for this chapter. But man, you see the beautiful transfiguration of Christ. You see how that must have affected those disciples. Then you see on the complete opposite end of that, you see the glory of God there, and then you see the lack of faith in the disciples after that couldn't cast out a demon and want to know why, and it's because their lack of faith. And as Jesus says, this type has to include prayer and fasting. But as you move along to the end of the chapter, there's a little story, and as I say that, this is one of those miracles that we actually hear about it, but we don't see it actually happen. And what I mean by that, it's not described. Like Jesus tells Peter what's going to happen, and then we're left to assume that it did. And I'll just be honest with you, why else would it be written down if it didn't happen? I have no problem believing it. So, Matthew chapter 17, verses 24 through 27. Let's look at this story, and then I'll tell you why calm is our word for today. When they had come to Capernaum, those who received the temple tax came to Peter and said, "Does your teacher not pay the temple tax?" He said, "Yes." And when he had come into the house, Jesus anticipated him, saying, "What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth take customs or taxes? From their sons or from strangers?" Peter said to him, "From strangers." Jesus said to him, "Then the sons are free. Nevertheless, lest we offend them, go to the sea, cast in a hook, and take the fish that comes up first. And when you have opened its mouth, you will find a piece of money. Take that and give it to them for me and you." It's interesting that the temple tax, typically the figure of money, it was 2 drachmas or drachmas, and as that was given, there wasn't a piece of money for that, and so oftentimes two adults would go together and pay one piece, and they would use one coin that was worth 4 drachmas, and so they would give that, and that would be the equivalence. So it's interesting that he goes and finds a single coin and is going to pay with that. Now, there again, what I just said, you notice that Jesus tells him what to do, but we don't hear that he went out and did it. But obviously, he did. And with that, you say, well, what does that have to do? What is paying the temple tax? Why? Okay, so now we're going to get Jesus for tax evasion, right? That's what some people would say and joke about. But what was the tax for? Well, it was the temple tax. And it was a tax that was to be paid for by all the Jewish males that were over, I believe, 20 years old. And so as they pay this, when it comes time to pay this tax, rather, they pay it, and it helps take care of the temple, maintenance and things of that sort that need to be taken care of. So it was a tax that way. So Peter says, yes, of course, Jesus is going to pay this when he was questioned about it. And so Jesus, as like every time, he turns it into a teaching moment, and he says, okay, so wait a minute. Who do you tax? Do you tax your children, or do you tax strangers? Who does a king tax? So he taxes the strangers, right? The kids in his house, they don't have to pay taxes because they're covered by the king. So Jesus was letting Peter know when he says, "Well, hey, that means that I'm free. It's my dad's house," is what Jesus is saying. He was letting him know his deity and saying, "Look, it's my house, and I don't have to pay this tax." But then he also says, "Well, the sons are free." So he knew that he was free, but he also knew that Peter, because of his belief in Christ, that he too would be covered, and so they both could get in for free with no tax. But can you imagine what kind of stir that would have caused? Can you imagine the kind of confusion and the kind of uproar and even how many other people would have then begun to go against what God had commanded for them to do, to collect this money to take care of the temple? So obviously, since he did not want to create a stir in that way, he says, okay, well, we'll pay the tax. Well, that's why I say that word calm today. There are times where we know Jesus came to divide. He didn't come to bring everybody together. He came to make a clear dividing line of whether you're believing in him or you're not. You're either for God or you're not. You're either going to heaven or to hell. There is no in between. And so he came to make that dividing line. And there are plenty of times where, I mean, he never backed down from anything, but there were times where he would go away when to kind of let the situations die down. And it was all because it was within his will. It was because it was due to the ministry that needed to be accomplished. And it was also because it had a lot more to do with the hearts that were willing to receive or the hearts that were unwilling to receive, the ones that would reject it. So instead of causing more of a stir over something simple like this little small measly tax, instead of saying, hey, don't you know who I am? I don't have to pay this, to keep calm, to keep the peace. As Paul says in Romans, as much as it depends upon you, live peaceably among men. And so Jesus decides that, hey, we're going to live peaceably at this moment, but we're also going to prove that God can provide. And so he tells Peter the fisherman to go down, throw in a hook, and the first fish that comes out, look in his mouth, and it's going to be a coin in there to pay for you and for me. What a beautiful picture of God paying for it all. What a beautiful picture also of Jesus fulfilling the old commands. That he was literally right there in front of Peter fulfilling the Mosaic law. There he stood before him. Today, I think we would do well to learn from Jesus' example. The disciples would have done well to listen a little bit clearer. Because today, what do? Sometimes we are so being offended today, that's like the go-to word. You know, people can say I'm offended and you just got to bow down to them. And that's not what I'm saying. But I do think that we need to understand that there are times where we are better off to keep the peace, to live as peaceably as we can with others. If nothing else, maybe just to keep the peace so we can come back later and share the gospel more clearly with them. Maybe we can build a relationship that had we opened with, hey, I'm a son, I'm a daughter, I'm free, and I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that, we would create division instead of bringing people together looking to Christ. So today, keep calm and trust Jesus. God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.